availability of insurance to pay ransoms, in your mind, helped or hurt with this ransomware trend we're seeing?
Well, that's as you know from the White House, that's a policy decision with the Department of Justice and the Attorney General weighing in. I will give my perspective, because I don't want to be too critical on the administration or the policies, but I'll give you my perspective on paying ransoms for terrorism that we saw when you were in the White House under President Bush 43, and as I was there as a counterterrorism special agent and in management at the FBI and working for the Department of Defense at times. That did result in further kidnappings of U.S. persons. We saw that significantly when ransoms were paid. It put us more at risk. We've got to think that, and the U.S. policy was we do not pay for ransoms. Private corporations, if you remember, the Somali pirates, which was really Al-Shabaab and East African Al-Qaeda, would hijack shipping vessels going around the Horn of Africa. The U.S. put special forces operators out there as a deterrent and as a force protection capability that were brought to bear with covert and not covert, but I'm sorry, direct action and kinetic action against Al-Shabaab and East African Al-Qaeda to mitigate that threat. So we used all tools in the toolbox to target terrorists that were attacking our U.S. corporations and our U.S. persons abroad, and it was very effective. I think from a policy decision, we've got to come up with what are we going to do in this space where U.S. companies are being held ransom and we're paying those ransomware. And then how do we track it if we are going to pay it with the cyber currency, which is problematic, is generally unregulated compared to the financial industry that you're familiar with and know your customer. Those all present challenges in this space that I think policymakers in Washington, congressmen and women, and the private sector need to come up with a good policy and legislation that is going to affect this clear vulnerability that we see over and over again.
Yeah, it's again what we're talking about the evolution of this and what it is. I mean, we're even seeing this evolve insofar as all of us, over the last year and a half have been working from home and questionable as to whether or not we had the right cyber protection all around us in our house as we needed it, which makes large corporations who the people are working for and small being vulnerable to more and more attacks. And again, this is where cyber terrorism becomes really challenging for insurers. Some in larger insurers especially have the capital on hand and are comfortable writing this risk, but as it's evolving, we're certainly seeing the assessment of the risk much more difficult to price and accordingly and make the right decisions in terms of how you offer protection to the consumer. And I agree with you. We've got to in some ways make it very clear as to what we need to do from a policy perspective. Coming through COVID, we realized very quickly that we didn't have any system in place to bring financial relief to consumers that were impacted by this pandemic that we're seeing. And as we're talking here today, we're in some ways paralleling what cyber could be economically if it were an event large enough to almost be like a pandemic. So again, it's a worry for insurers where they're working diligently to see how they can make the right decisions in terms of pricing the risk accordingly. But price is something that's a challenge as well for the consumer, because premiums on the cyber terrorism we're seeing go up 50%, and in some cases 100%. So consumers don't necessarily like to hear that, but you have to price the risk, price the insurance according to what the risk level is. And as we're talking here today, if we have more unknowns about cyber terrorism, and that provides less ability to underwrite the risk, and so that makes it harder and pricier, quite honestly, for the insurance products that we're having get out there. But at the same time, as much as there's a risk, there's also an opportunity, and the insurance industry is working to figure out ways that it can offer the right products so that it can be in there to help the consumer overcome, be that financial first responder. But more and more, you're also seeing that they're having to be more explicit about what cyber means and whether or not it is covered. In fact, Lloyd's, which is one of the larger insurance market providers, has mandated that policies are actually now needing to explicitly state whether the cyber coverage is in there or not.